Make sure you like this video. Click that bell to get all your notifications. Any sort of mortgage news, if you want to listen to this crazy guy, that's the way that you're going to find out about it.
Yep. Turn on those notifications. All right, let's get into what the next thing is.
So the Fed met today, and I'm a little confusing on their statements. I'm going to read you two different quotes. The first one is a quote from Powell. That's the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, back in October. This was on the September GDP numbers. He said, that's a very slow level of growth, and it could give rise to increases in unemployment. But I think that is something we need, that we think we need to have.
That was in September. So he was saying that
Basically,
slow rides, we're going to see some unemployment. We need to have it because they want people to stop spending money.
Exactly.
Okay.
We think we need to have a softer labor market.
Unless it's the federal government printing 1.7 trillion. But
right. Come today, his how he led this off is the Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people.
Maximum employment.
He is on record saying that he is trying to lower employment rates in order to get inflation because he wants wage numbers down because it will impact inflation. But they are on record. He is on record saying that is how he wants to do it. And yet he comes out today and says that his job is to promote maximum employment.
That is such BS because here's what he's doing. Here's another spin zone. Maximum employment without raising inflation is what he meant to say, right?
Yes.
So he's thinking, okay, we're going to start losing some jobs because the jobs number and stuff, I'm sure you're going to get into that, but the jobs numbers and stuff like that came out today. So
yes.
He's going to say, we're going to maintain maximum employment as long as inflation's sitting between 2 and 3%.
Pretty much. Well, he wants it to get down to 2%.
Right.
Which is why they still raised the rate today.
Another quarter.
They're lowering how much they raise it by, but they're still raising it.
They're not going to raise it again.
Do you think they'll hit 5?
I don't think they should.
I mean, yeah, they shouldn't, but they should not have raised it even today. I mean, inflation is going down and still going down. We've already said on this show that it's a rolling average.
Where's it at right now? Not inflation. The rate. You asked if it was going to hit 5. Where are we at?
Let me tell you, it's 4
I don't think that they should raise it anymore. They're also on record saying that they made a mistake and they missed the inflation. Remember the word transitory?
Yeah.
This is transitory. It's going to go down. But anyone with a brain knew it wasn't, except that the Fed, Jerome Powell, our homies over there, they missed it, right? And they made a mistake, and it caused inflation to be worse, and then it caused them to have to react to the inflation harder. And I was saying since June, rip the Band-Aid off, raise the rate, just do it, just rip the Band-Aid off, let's get it over with.
Yep.
And they didn't, and they were too slow, and then 75 bips, right?
Right.
And then what happened? Now they're going too far in the other direction because they're trying not to make a mistake, but this mistake could be worse than missing the fact that the inflation was going up.
It probably will be.
And worse in the other direction. It's not going to be people are spending money. It's going to be people have no money.
Because they don't have jobs.
Right. It's just absolutely wild. We just mentioned Wells Fargo laying people off. We just mentioned Amazon. There's been layoffs. If you look at manufacturing, the manufacturing is just ridiculous. They've been in a recession. We are in a recession that they failed to call a recession and don't want to call a recession by any metric of the number over the past 50 years.
Right.
So explain that.
I mean, you can't, because it is a recession. It has to be political that they're not calling it a recession. We are in a recession, and I mean, you talk about job numbers, right? And this is a correction actually on the last one because they had the 253,000
right
increase, so this was 106,000,
and they were calling for
revised.
It was revised 106,000, and they were calling for 170,000.
190.
They were calling for 190. So it came in light.
It came in
which
light.
is good for the market.
106,000. But 95,000 of those 106,000 were service industry, meaning works in hospitality, bars, restaurants, hotels. 95,000 of that 106 part-time jobs.
What people need to watch, and if you're hearing stuff about the jobs numbers came at this, 106 new creation, like pick those job numbers apart, right? So 95,000 are service industry, which aren't the highest paying jobs. And a lot of times what that represents is people are picking up part-time jobs because they lost their job.
And they cannot find
a job to replace it. So they're picking up jobs in bars, restaurants. Great work. I did it for a long time, but they're doing that and they're taking part-time basis just to cover their bills to get through the hard time. That, folks, is called a recession, no matter what they call it.
Yes.
And here's the other thing you need to look at. Average hours worked. So if you're looking at the hours that people are working, and it averages out less than what it was the previous month, that's another sign of a recession, which is happening. So the job creations are service level, and the hours are going down, which says to me people are picking up part-time jobs in the service industry, which has been underserved for a while, to cover their bills until they can find that job that they want.
I mean, that's because that's what they have to do, because it's not about, and that's the whole thing that's driving inflation, right? It's not about the actual employment numbers. It's about how much they're getting paid. It's the wage numbers, because that is what drives inflation. And these numbers are deceiving, and the Fed, what?
I disagree. You think wages drove inflation this time?
No, I'm saying that's what matters to the inflation numbers.
Right.
I'm saying that the actual wage costs, it doesn't matter how many people are working. It matters how much they're getting paid, because that's how much they have to spend.
Agreed.
That is the number that drives inflation.
But the problem,
I'm not saying it's increasing inflation. I'm saying that
didn't even come close to causing it. I get what you're saying. You clarified that. So, what he was saying was the wage number needs to go down according to the Fed.
Correct. And even if employment numbers go up, the wage numbers are going down.
But they failed to say.
Exactly.
So I just want everyone here to know, you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
Donovan, do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Here's where I'm going with this. Imagine this. Just imagine this. Oh, man, what's a great example of this? Imagine that. Just imagine that imagine that something wasn't your fault, but you got punished for it, right? So, for example, let's use this as an example. Inflation. What caused inflation? This is the $1 million question. Actually, we could call it the $1.7 trillion question. Inflation was caused by the fact that we were printing too much money. We shut our supply chains down for 2 years. A lot of bad things happened, right?
Right.
And when that happens and inflation goes up, what's the Fed do? They don't stop printing money. They say, you know what we're going to do? Instead of stopping the printing of money, we're going to print more money.
Right.
But then on top of it, we're going to hike the overnight bank rate. And the reason we're going to do that is so that interest rates go up, so that people stop spending money in the economy, so they have to start tapping into their savings and using more credit card and running up more debt, which we saw has happened. And then eventually what's going to happen when people stop spending money, the businesses that employ them are going to see things tightening, and then they're going to lose their jobs. So, hey, we were a major contributor to the fact that inflation was increasing, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to punish you, the working class people. We're going to make sure that you lose your job and your wages go down, even though the American workers' wages haven't risen at the same rate as inflation.
Yeah.
Wild. Absolutely wild. That's like, how do you punish people? That's like I watched The Innocent Project on Netflix about all the innocent people who go to jail and they get freed.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. Like, hey, you're innocent. You didn't cause this. You've just been working hard trying to support your family. We screwed up, but we don't even recognize we screwed up. And we don't recognize, we called inflation transitory for 12 months. And then, oh, shoot, it's not. okay, well, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but you and your family need to suffer to fix our mistake.
And then that's exactly what's happening. The Fed is putting it off on the everyday person.
Right.
And
it's the same way the federal government overspends and wants to raise my taxes. We're $32 trillion in debt, but they want to raise our taxes, right?
Right.
You know, and you can look this up. This is a true story. We don't have to do it on this podcast, but there was a time when there was no federal income tax in this country.
Right.
And after the Civil War.
You know what happened when they tried to do a federal income tax?
Well, I know of one that happened. Well, the Boston Tea Party.
Right.
Yeah, but then after the Civil War happened, and the government was worried, and this was when the government was still responsible. They were worried about the debt that they were carrying, and they wanted to pay off the debt. And they said, "Hey, can we do?" They went to the people because we're the ones who vote the government in, and they said, "Hey, you the people, can we raise taxes in order to pay off this debt? And as soon as it's done being paid off, we'll lower your tax. We'll get rid of the tax again." And they did. And that's what happened. They paid off the debt, and as soon as the debt was paid off, they stopped taxing the people.
So you're saying they had one goal
to pay off the debt.
Right.
And
came together and said, all right, this is one thing to get this done with, and then they moved on.
Right. And so I heard a great analogy.
They didn't compound it.
Right. So I heard a great analogy. It's like, was it Patrick Bet David said this on his podcast the other day. He said, if you have a family member that keeps coming to you and with their hand out saying, hey, give me money, give me $1. If you give me $1, I'll give you $1.50 back in a year.
Yeah.
And then they come to you, they haven't paid $1.50. Well, give me $5,000. I have this idea. I'll give you $7,500 back. And then they come to you a third time and they're like, I can't give you that $7,500 2 years later, but I do have this other idea. Can you give me 10? That's the federal government right now.
It really is.
Give me more, give me more, give me more. I'm going to keep spending. I'm going to keep increasing the debt. It's the same thing. Like, hey, it's not my fault that you're running up debt and you don't know how to budget a checkbook. like seriously. And I get it. It's not the same as personal finances and business finances. But now we're looking at the Fed, and the Fed's like, hey, we really screwed up. Inflation. We missed this. We don't want to make another mistake. So you need to suffer. Why is that fair?
Well, and to your point too, slow to react. Like that's what caused this to begin with. That's what's going on again right now. And it's hurting the working class.
I referenced Muhammad Ali a few times today.
Yeah.
And the reason I referenced them is we're doing a lot of recruiting of loan officers, and we have good people coming aboard, and they're like, why should I come work for a company that's only a year old? And I said, well, one, we're the only broker shop with certain technologies. Plain and simple. We're going to lead the country. We're going to be the number one when it comes to technology in this industry. We're going to be nimble on our feet. We are surviving in the tough market. Not only surviving, we're thriving. We're putting systems and processes in place that nobody else is going to do, right?
Right.
So what I said was, okay, so here's the deal. Come and work for us. It's like Muhammad Ali. He was the greatest ever because he was quick on his feet. He could think, he could react, and he could knock you out. We can do all of those, right? The Fed does the opposite, though. They're slow. And when you're slow, you get knocked out. And that's just the honest truth.